community engagement convening about the work that is ahead of us. I'm going to take a moment to share exactly what you should be seeing, which is your Nearpod on the left-hand side of your screen and this picture here. And we're going to be using a platform called an interactive platform called Nearpod to share the work of this evening and to engage as a community in conversation. So if you follow the directions that were sent to you in the email, you should be all set. And we're going to dive into a brief welcome. If you take a moment to just set up your space again, I know many of us have lots of tabs and lots of windows open. Sometimes it's helpful on Zoom to close all those tabs and just keep the ones open that you need. In this case, we're going to keep a Zoom screen open on the left and our Nearpod screen open on the right. And as you see, I'm going to advance through these slides, which is where we are able to see shared content over the course of the evening. It looks like everybody has their preferred name in their screen, so I'm going to just jump past that and just take a moment to build some community and agree to a couple of norms as we bring folks together from many different towns, different places in the county. Can I ask folks to lean in? And this is a conversation. It's not a webinar. It's not sit and get. We're hopefully going to engage in many moments of back and forth. We want to assume the best, know that we are all here making time on a Tuesday afternoon for shared reasons. Going to try to share our time with each other and listen and lean in and lean out as needed. We're going to try to make this as interactive as possible. And don't be surprised if I cold call a couple of folks to just share your thinking, share your reactions to some of the presentation that we share. And thank you in advance for muting if you are not speaking, so that the experience is strong for everybody and we're free from background noise across the room. And speaking of the room, we want to just take a moment to first do a round of introductions and then see who is in the room this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ben Plumpus. I am a Berkshire County educator for about 2 decades. I live in North County, have worked with Jake and Lucy and Mary and this team a number of times on a number of projects over the last many years. And I'm excited to introduce Jake, why don't you take it next, and then Mary, and then Lucy for a quick introduction.
Sure. Hi, I'm Jake Eberwein. Many of you know me, a longtime educator in Berkshire County, currently serving as the project manager for the Regional School District Planning Board and also project manager for the former Berkshire County Education Task Force, which is now called Berkshire Educational Resources K-12. Good to have you all here.
Hi, I'm Mary Nash. I'm part of the research team, and I'm serving as the community outreach consultant on this project. And I've worked in the county for a number of years on program evaluation, survey, focus group grant writing with education and nonprofits.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lucy Prashker, and I am chair of the 8-town Regional School District Planning Board. I'm a resident of Alford.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lucy. And as we get started, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Part of the innovation of what's I think innovative about this Nearpod platform is that this is an opportunity for us to share with each other. And so going to ask you to share what is your name and what brings you here tonight. Thank you, Patrick. You jumped right into the little white box that's at the bottom of your blue screen. And there you can type your response to that question. What's your name? What brings you here tonight? And if once you finish typing, You'll see a little paper airplane in a blue box. Push that and it will post it in just a moment. We're going to see lots of little sticky notes jump up in front of us, and this will give us a round of practice for some of the ways that we're going to engage with each other tonight.
Excuse me,
Hello,
but
Maggie.
I'm watching this on an iPad, and none of the buttons and bells and whistles you're referencing are on my screen, just to let you know.
Thanks, Maggie.
Nor can I open another browser window and stay in Zoom. So sorry about that, but
That's okay. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We're going to be narrating just about everything that we need to, and so thank you for making a note of that for those of us who are on iPads. We'll be sharing the contents of this slide deck following the presentation, so you have all of that, and just stay with us along the way as well. So thank you, Maggie. Wonderful. Keep these coming in. I see lots of familiar faces and many new ones coming in. And if you notice, for those of you who are able to see the Nearpod screen, you can hover over each of these sticky notes and click on the heart of one or two that either resonate with you or friends of yours, etc. And so this is a way to build some community and consensus across a group. And Peter, it's nice to see you. I'm going to give you a heart right there, and quickly we can see folks starting to come up. Great. Looks like we have strong representation from across the system. And in the interest of time, I'm going to keep us moving forward, but just know that we're going to have many opportunities to engage in this back and forth as we dive into the content this evening. And so, speaking of the content this evening, we're here together really to do two things in the next 2 hours. The first is to build awareness of the 8-Town Regional District Planning Board and the work that they've been up to, and to gather feedback in response to the current preferred model for reorganizing schools in South County. Our agenda is fourfold. Our aim is to first, I'm going to kick it over to Lucy and Jake, who are going to walk us through an introduction and a project overview. This has been a long-standing project with many moving parts, and they're going to take about 20-25 minutes to share progress updates. And then we're going to take a couple of minutes to just get on the same page and independently read some of the work that the team has produced to help ensure that we're all looking at the same information prior to going into a strategic analysis and sharing our thinking in response to a couple of questions related to this work. We're going to finish with a few next steps and some additional ways to engage in this work as we move forward. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jake and to Lucy, who are going to take it away and share an introduction of the work together.
Okay, thanks, Ben. And again, welcome to community members. I'm really pleased to see so many people here tonight. I have to begin actually by apologizing that we need to do a bit of housekeeping before we can get started. This is a time for our 8-Town board to hear from you, but because we have in the audience a quorum of certain of our 8-Town subcommittees, we need to formally call those subcommittees to order before we can get started in order to comply with the open meeting law. So I'm hoping we can get that done quickly so that we can then move on to the substance. It looks like we have on the call a quorum of our community outreach subcommittee, our educational quality subcommittee, and our project management subcommittee. So I am going to call those three meetings to order and take roll call attendance of the planning board members on just those three committees. So Nadine Hover, are you on?
Yes.
Bonnie Silvers? Bonnie, you're on? Yes. Jane Burke, are you on? Jane's not on? Okay. Susan Smith, you're on?
Yes.
Pat White? Patrick?
Yes.
Great. Deb Phillips?
Yes.
Okay. Peter Taylor? Peter's not on? All right, and Lucy Krashker, I'm on. Others who I believe are on the call but are not part of those subcommittees are Don Coburn from Monterey, George McGurn from Egremont, and Danelle Kelly from Egremont.
Yes.
Great. Did I miss any planning board members in going through that roll call? All right. Thank you. Again, I really want to extend on behalf of our full board our warm welcome to the parents, town officials, and other community members who are on the call tonight. We really appreciate your agreeing to spend a couple of hours with us this evening to talk about our work and our next steps. I can't take credit for any of the slides some of you are going to see, other than Maggie, I guess, and some others. The slides are the work of our research team leader, Jake Eberwein, who among his many other talents is a master slide presenter. So these slides are not mine, but I do get to manage them here. So I'm going to go to the first one. The overview is who are we? Why do we exist? What have we done? What have we found? And what's next? On this slide is a map of our 8 towns. And it's important because when you're talking about regional school districts and the possible merging of regional school districts, geography, of course, matters. The 8 towns we're talking about are West Stockbridge, Stockbridge, and Great Barrington, which comprise the Berkshire Hills Regional School District, and Alford, Egremont, Sheffield, New Marlborough, and Monterey, which comprise the Southern Berkshire Regional School District. Who are we? What is the 8-town Regional School District Planning Board? We were formed, a board formed in March of 2020, just when the pandemic hit. We had one meeting before we went remote. We've been meeting for 28 months. We are a board whose composition is determined by statute. So under the statute, each town has 3 members on the planning board. So while the town I live in, which is Alford, is tiny compared to Great Barrington, we have the same number of representatives on the planning board as does Great Barrington. Since we formed, we've had over 100 meetings, either as a full board or in subcommittees. This is Jake's slide. So Jake, it's actually 109 meetings, but who's counting, right? Other than me. Our charge or mandate is actually also determined by statute. It is to study the fiscal and educational advisability of establishing a regional school district, or in this case, combining 2 regional school districts, its organization, construction, and operations to serve the needs of our kids. But why did this board really form? We've got some challenges. And some of those challenges are significant. We have declining enrollment, which has already been significant and is projected to continue. We have rising operational costs. Even in the face of declining enrollment, our operating costs are going up. We have flat state revenue, also projected to continue relatively flat. We have increased and increasing educational and support needs for the kids. And all of these things combined put increasing pressures on our districts to be able to continue to provide the necessary educational resources, access, and opportunities for our kids to succeed. We've got a couple of slides that illustrate the data on this. Here's an enrollment slide. And you'll see, looking at K through 12 enrollment, since just the year 2000, we've had a 35% decline in enrollment across the two districts. It's a higher percentage of decline in Southern Berkshire than Berkshire Hills over that period of time, but there's still a significant decline in both districts. The projection is that by the year 2030, the decline will be 52% as compared to the year 2000. These are obviously very significant numbers. But even though these enrollment declines are happening, spending is going up in both districts. And this next slide illustrates that. The blue bars on this slide show actual spending in each of the two districts. And the orange bars show state aid, which, as you'll see there, is flat. And so the result of that is that a larger and larger.
I don't see any slides. I don't know if anyone else is seeing slides, but I don't see them.
I'm not seeing any slides either.
I am. Maybe you didn't click in.
Screen?
You have to be on the Nearpod in order to see the slides.
Dan, what's your suggestion, Dan, at this point?
Yeah, let's just take a pause. It looks like our numbers have increased a little bit since we came back. Can everybody see my screen? My face, and the yellow box that is to my upper right gives the link to a separate what's called a Nearpod platform, which is the slide sharing platform that we are using this evening. And so if you open a new browser in your a new window and type in that URL into that browser, you should be prompted to sign in, and that will give you access to the slides that we're sharing as we share. If you're not able to do that, worry not. After this presentation, we'll be sharing the entire deck with making it public for everybody here. And for those of you who are on an iPad, etc., we recognize that might be challenging. So listen to the words that in the narration that Lucy and Jake are going to be sharing, and otherwise, just about everybody should be able to access the slide deck via the link that's shared in the yellow box behind my head.
And do we have the potential to have you share your slide so that people could see on the Zoom the actual slideshow if they weren't visiting that?
We absolutely do. Let's pivot and do that.
That way, it's a backup plan. It won't be interactive, but at least people will be able to see the slides.
Sure thing. Let me. Thanks for this. Let me just give you.
There you go.
How's that?
It's perfect. I'm just going to go back one for those who couldn't see the slides. This is the enrollment slide that shows 35% decline in enrollment K through 12 since 2000, with that number projected to increase to a 52% decline from 2000 to 2030. And here's the slide on that illustrates that while enrollment is going down, operating costs are going up. And the state aid is staying flat. So the result of that is that the 8 towns, the 5 in Southern Berkshire and 3 in Berkshire Hills, are having to cover a greater and greater percentage of each district's budget through local tax payments. And as I said, all this is happening while student needs are increasing. One area of increasing need is in opportunities and pathways through high school that prepare our students for both college and career, either career out of college or career right out of high school. And the chart on the left shows that in the 2 districts, only 40 to 53% of our graduates, we have very high graduation rates, but 40 to 53% of those graduates over this 10-year period, 2006 to 2016, actually complete a college degree. So that other 50% is going into the workforce without a college degree and need to have career, vocational, technical, educational training in order to prepare them for jobs that will pay over, at or over a living wage. And you can see on the right numbers that show the number of students in South County who are in what we call Chapter 74 CVTE programs. That's 47 total in our 8 towns, as compared to what those numbers are in Pittsfield, 406, and North, 506. So CVTE options in South County are limited, and that's an area of increased need in South County. So that's where we are, and that's why we're here, to study the possible solutions to these very real challenges that both our districts currently face. While we may have different opinions as to what the best solutions may be to these challenges, I believe that we share as a common goal and objective that we want our schools to be just as strong as they can possibly be, within, of course, the constraints of what our taxpayers can afford. So that's our challenge, and this is our call to action. I'm going to turn the floor over to Jake Eberwein, who leads our research team and serves as our project manager. But before I do, I want to say just a couple of words about Jake and his research team. For those who don't know Jake, he's been a public educator since 1994, as a classroom teacher to a college dean, including as superintendent of schools in Pittsfield and the Lee superintendent. He is a well-recognized expert in regionalization and collaboration efforts and in developing other solutions to improve educational outcomes. Also on the team are 3 other former school superintendents, Rob Putnam, Ken Rock, and Frank Cody. We've got leading experts in public school finance and data analysis, including Sarah Carlton, a former member of the Office of Planning and Research in the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, and she is a widely respected presenter on regionalization across the Commonwealth. Also on the team are Matt Abrahams and Mark Abrahams, who are experts in school finance and data analysis. And then on the communications side, you've already been introduced to Mary Nash, who is an expert in survey design and analysis, focus groups, and other methods of gathering community input. It is not just the credentials of our research team that are so important here. These are all people who have devoted their professional careers to the mission of improving educational outcomes for kids. And so I feel we really do have a dream team on board here, and I cannot thank each of them enough for the tremendous effort and care that they have put into this work. So I hope I didn't embarrass you, Jake, and take it away.
Thanks, Lucy. And thanks everyone again for your attention. I'm just going to jump into the work and try to run you through an overview of what we've done, what we found, and where we're headed. Our team, really as part of the original work plan approved a year ago, developed a set of research questions. The questions really focused on the idea of whether some form of collaboration, consolidation, or regionalization between Berkshire Hills and Southern Berkshire would improve educational quality and access, would create fiscal stability, would act more as a collaborative effort rather than a competitive effort between the two districts, would ensure access of all students to all programming that we had available, would offer opportunities for innovation. But really, these research questions ultimately boil down to two essential questions. And those questions are, can the two districts function better together than apart? If the answer is yes, then what's the best organizational model within which to accomplish that? So this is really the question that's driving the board and driving our group. So what have we done? We followed the process actually that started before we joined the board. This, again, as Lucy mentioned, beginning in 2020. We joined the board, the effort in 2021, about a year ago. Prior to that, the board had organized and they conducted some initial baseline study, including a look at what would happen if the district continued to function as they currently do with no change. We jumped into phase 2, which is now completed. That included looking closely at a bunch of variables in the districts, including educational programming, finance, transportation, special education, enrollment choice. And we also conducted a comprehensive community survey, some focus groups, and held lots of conversations. This work set the stage for the analysis of 3 models, which I'll be talking about, that the board asked our team to consider. We studied, evaluated each, and then shared our recommendations with the board in March of this year, which they approved as the preferred option for further study. Since then, we've moved into phase 3, which is the further study, and that's including the research that's ongoing, community engagement, including tonight's event, and the drafting of a regional agreement. Our work has been funded through state grants, member towns, school districts, and local grants, and we do appreciate all the support that we received from both the state and at the local level. So what models were we asked to study? There were 3 models that the board asked us to look at. Our team developed scenarios within each model to help us better define the options. The models range from full regionalization, we all become one large district, to just more collaboration. The 3 models A, B, and C are on the screen right now. Model A basically suggested that the 2 regional districts combined to become a single 8-town regional district. And there were 3 scenarios within this model that we looked at. The first kept all schools open as they currently exist. The second included the merger of the high school grades 9 through 12, on a single campus in Great Barrington, while maintaining existing elementary and middle schools. And the third scenario added the combination of grades 7 and 8 as combined on the Great Barrington campus. So we would ultimately have grades 7 through 12 on the Great Barrington campus and elementary schools existing as they currently do. Model B focused on the creation of a high school regional district, grades 9 through 12. And then what would be remaining would be elementary, pre-K through 8 regional districts that you could organize in one of 2 ways, either as a combined regional pre-K through 8 district or as 2 separate districts, one managed by Berkshire Hills and one managed by Southern Berkshire. That would ultimately result in 3 regional districts being in existence. And then option C was the idea that we maintain the two districts as they currently exist with increased collaboration, whether that would be through formal collaboration, such as sharing courses and staff and operational functions, to the creation of a collaborative, which is a legal entity under the Department of Education that supports shared services across a number of districts, including things like transportation, special education, and professional development. So those are the three models. Now, I know that this is a lot to take in, and we wrote really long reports that are in some ways hard to get through. But I would encourage folks, if you have a chance, to go to the website and to kick it around a little bit. We know it's overwhelming, but we want you to take a chance to sort of look at the detailed reports. There may be certain things that catch your attention. So we want to just call that to your attention today. It's easy to remember, 8towns.org. So the question is, now what did we find? Our report and presentations include a lot of data, trends, and feedback. As Lucy mentioned, there's trends in enrollment, including choice, cost, and finances, graduation pathways, career vocational technical education. But we wanted to highlight a few other things that we found that were included as part of our final analysis. The first is that although we often think of district or town lines as signaling significant differences, we actually found that two districts have a lot in common. Secondly, we found that, like many districts, there's room for improvement in terms of student outcomes and in terms of the programs and experiences that students have access to. We know and we verified that the buildings aren't full. In fact, they're about half full. And several are or will need additional investment in the future. And then lastly, we certainly found that there's a lot of organizational redundancies, operational redundancies between the two districts. And in some cases, there are gaps where there are not necessarily resources where it might make sense to invest resources. So again, there's a lot more in the reports that we have, but those are just a few things for illustration. To illustrate that, I just wanted to share just a couple quick slides. This is a snapshot from the improvement plans. And what's interesting about the two improvement plans, when you put them side by side, you see a lot of common language, things around strong adult student relationships, things around focus on community relationships, around student competencies, around the importance of school culture. So we, again, just use this as a way to illustrate that we really do believe the schools have a lot in common. Secondly, we looked at a lot of data points. There's a big educational quality report that we produced. And we know, of course, having been a superintendent myself, that there's always room for improvement. So we found that not only in student outcomes, but also in the kinds of programs that we offer, whether it's early childhood access, after-school programming, professional development for staff, or, as been mentioned, career vocational technical ed. As a research team, we set parameters and assumptions as we consider the models. These parameters and assumptions can be moved. We can certainly look at models by adjusting those, but we wanted to share our parameters that we used. And these were reflected upon, these were reflections of what we heard when we talked to people. So a few things that I just want to call to your attention. One is school closures. In our preferred model, we recognize that school closures were of high sensitivity to the community, particularly in the elementary grades. Thus, we want to emphasize that no schools would be closed in the preferred model. Class size. Given that many believe class sizes should be kept as small as possible, particularly in elementary school, there's no change to class size for elementary and middle school children. In the high school, our target class size is no larger than 20 to 22, with many classes, especially electives, likely smaller. Job loss. We strove to minimize job loss and believe that any faculty staff reductions can be achieved primarily through attrition over time. High school construction. Given that the Berkshire Hills has a high school renovation reconstruction project, what I call in the pipeline, in recognizing the geographic centrality of the Great Barrington campus to all the other 7 towns, the merged high school would be located in Great Barrington as part of the planned construction project. And finally, travel time for students. Travel time for elementary and middle students in our preferred model does not increase, with opportunities for actually some decrease in some cases for these students. For high school students, some would have shorter rides, some would have slightly longer rides, but no student would have a ride longer than the current maximum length of 1 hour. Those are the parameters we set. So in order to evaluate the models as objectively as possible, we used a couple of tools. We used an ease impact matrix and a 4-domain evaluation grid. And we basically asked how hard or easy would the model be to pull off, what would the impact be? And then we evaluated that within educational quality, operational efficiency, finance, and feasibility. As you can see, illustrated by the red circles, our preferred model A2 did find its way into the positive part of the quadrant and was evaluated as green on the 4 domains model, which means it was preferable. This all led to our recommendation, which was ultimately adopted as the preferred option by the board, that the 2 districts merged to form a single K-12 regional school district among the 8 towns, maintaining all existing and elementary and middle schools, but creating a new merged 9 through 12 high school to be built on the campus of current Monument Mountain High School. The advantages, as you can see, just a few highlighted, include expanded programming for high school students in a state-of-the-art facility with additional vocational programs and career pathway opportunities, expanded opportunities for all students. I often say drawing the best of both from both high schools, from both districts, ensuring an expanded professional culture and network for teachers and professionals, pooling resources to support growing student need in the areas of social emotional, special education, English language learners, increasing the variety and breadth of extracurricular activities, really having a larger student body that would likely be slightly more diverse, alignment of administrative and operational functions, obviously creating fiscal efficiencies, and then savings in the preferred model in the neighborhood of $1.5 to $2.1 million annually that could be used to either reinvest in education or to offset town assessments. Of course, there are inherent challenges too. And let's be clear, the combining of 2 regional districts will be the first of its kind in Massachusetts. So no one's I certainly will not argue this is going to be easy. And those challenges will include some of the things I have on the screen here, which is how do we ensure that towns are represented in a fair governance structure? How do we figure out how towns pay fair share towards the assessment and operational costs? But ultimately, how do we create community buy-in, this idea that we're coming together as an 8-town region with a common culture? So we know the work is going to be hard. Additional study is needed. Lots of detail to be worked through. But we believe in the end that the preferred model has the greatest benefit to the towns, but more importantly, the greatest benefit to the students in ensuring they have access to a high quality, comprehensive education, both today and into the future. So what's next? Right now we're in phase 3, which is part of this is community outreach and engagement, which includes tonight. We're doing work on envisioning, beginning to draft a regional agreement, which will include both governance and assessment, among other things. We're doing additional analysis. Right now we're doing much deeper dive on transportation. We know that that's a really an area of high interest for the community. And we're working closely with our legislators and state officials to advocate for this project and hopefully build some incentives into the work that we're doing. So the timeline is not fixed, but I wanted to share kind of what we're thinking. This offers a little bit of a glimpse for about a 1-year time period that goes back about a month, but projects forward into spring 2023. We anticipate a draft regional agreement will be formed over the next 6 months with the idea that we would be deliberating as a board in December and January with the idea that if that were affirmatively supported, then it would be sent to the towns for a vote. I will close by saying that for 2 years, the board has been committed to this work, working incredibly hard. I have great respect for the members of the board, despite the challenges of a pandemic, and they have maintained momentum and focus in moving this ahead. But we want to emphasize that while the board, with our team's help, has been charged with the research, with making recommendations, ultimately the decision will be the communities, the residents, the voters. Thus, by being here today, we do appreciate everyone's willingness to hear, to engage in the process, and to share your thoughts and perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake, and thank you, Lucy. And we recognize how complex and important this work is, and we hope that that overview gives us enough narration behind some of the additional documents and research that have already been that you've already reviewed previously. As we shift to the next part of our agenda, from the introduction, project overview, to the strategic analysis, we're just going to take a moment to pause and to get on the same page. And given the amount of information that we're asking folks to wrap their heads around, we're going to actually just take 10 silent minutes to reread and re-review a couple of key documents that have been sent to you in email, and I'm going to make them available again via this Nearpod. And so we're going to ask you to first, if you did not have a chance to read the pre-reading, which was a multi-page document that was a synthesis of what Jake and Lucy just shared, do that. And if you have already done that, take a moment to re-review a set of frequently asked questions, which was the second document shared in your email. And our ask is for just take 10 minutes to collect our thoughts in response to the overview that you just heard and the information that you see in writing that was shared, and begin to jot down on your own what clarifying questions do you have, and what are your initial reactions? What excites you about the preferred model and the proposed solution to the challenges that we're wrestling with? And what questions does it raise? And so with that, if you are still looking at the Nearpod, I'm going to actually stop sharing the screen so there's less confusion. If you are in the Nearpod, you can click on the blue bar at the bottom to see the PDF of the pre-reading. And this is the same thing that was emailed just an hour or so prior to the Zoom call. And so you can refer either to your email or to the screen here, and take 10 minutes to collect your thoughts, re-review, if helpful, the pre-reading that was shared. I'll spend a couple of moments on this document. When you click on that blue bar, it should open in a new tab.
If anyone needs me to re-email the documents, I can do that too. If there's anyone who can't get on the Nearpod and can't locate my previous email, just let me know and I'll email it to you right now.
Thank you, Mary. And the second document that we are referring to is the next slide, which I'm going to, you should see now, which is a set of frequently asked questions. So I'll leave this here for a moment. If you click on the blue bar that says Group Reading version 2 at the bottom of your screen, you can see that open. And it's 17 past the hour. Feel free to go off camera. We're going to come back together at 27 past the hour in 10 minutes. And then we'll advance to take a short break and then into the community conversation now that we've collected our thoughts and we're hopefully on the same page. once again, the instructions for this time. I'll share screen so that everybody.
I don't care for it.
Just as a time check, we'll be coming back in about 2 minutes. As we do, take a moment to just collect your thoughts, and you'll have a moment in 2 minutes to identify what clarifying questions do you have, and we're going to take a moment to share some of those questions so that we can see what's still unclear that we can take a moment to address. Again, 2 minutes. All right, that's been about 10 minutes. And in the Collaborate board in the Nearpod that you should be able to see now, I will go back to sharing my screen so that everybody can see it if you're not able to. I'm going to ask you to drop a question or two in the white box at the bottom of your screen. And so based on your review of the shared documents and Jake and Lucy's presentation, what clarifying questions do you have? And these, as clarifying questions, these are like the what, the when, the where, the how, just to help build a collective understanding of what we're trying to get at. So go ahead and just take a couple of minutes, drop your thoughts. Thank you, Susan, for leading the way. And we will respond to as many as we have time for now as we move forward to a more strategic analysis. And I'm going to share my screen right now so that, whoops. Oops. 1 minute. There we go. Take another moment or two. Keep these coming in.
Yeah, we just call on you.
Wonderful. And if for those of you who haven't, who don't have any questions, but would like to add, click on the heart of one that actually resonates with you and that might have been on your mind as well, feel free to do that. And I'm going to open it up to Lucy and or Jake to scan these questions and respond to those that you think that we have answers to in as briefly as we can.
Lucy, maybe you want to tackle the vote question, but I can answer Susan's question, I think, to the best of my ability. Thanks
Sure.
for that question about educational visioning. Excellent question. We have included educational visioning as part of the 5 task areas, and the board has approved looking at educational visioning in a number of sort of grade span buckets. So pre-K through 6, I guess, or 5, depending how we cut off on the middle school, and then middle school, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, and then a 4th bucket that would be focused on career vocational technical education. We are actually, the educational subcommittee is meeting on July 6th. Deb Phillips is actually on the line, I believe, tonight. She's our chair. And we will be discussing specifically how we're going to tackle the ed visioning work and putting together both a combination of working groups and the potential for some community convenings with some of the bigger decision points. So I'm not giving a specific answer other than to say that we're organizing around those grade spans with the idea that we'll be, I think, engaging in a specific plan on July 6th forward.
That's great. Thanks, Jake.
You're welcome.
I'm happy to respond to the questions about the town votes as best I can. So in order to have an 8-town new regional school district, you would need all 8 of those towns to vote in favor of the new agreement. The votes would be at town meeting. They would be by ballot, and a majority of the residents in the town would be required for an affirmative vote, not a supermajority, a majority. So that's what would be needed for a new 8-town regional school district, which is what we hope for. Is it possible that there could be a new 7-town regional school district? Yes, that is theoretically possible. And that would require the votes of the 7 towns that want to join a new school district. a majority vote in those 7 towns, with the 8th town having to determine the way they want to educate the kids in their town through tuition agreements or other arrangements with other school districts. That 7-town model obviously doesn't work if the 8th town that doesn't vote yes is Great Barrington or Sheffield. And again, our hope is that we're going to have an affirmative vote if ultimately the planning board votes to recommend an 8-town district. Our hope would be that we would get affirmative votes of all 8 towns, and that is what we're working on now. We are working with DESE and talking with council about this other theoretical possibility, but that really isn't the focus of our work right now. The focus of our work right now is finding a draft agreement that might be acceptable to all 8 towns.
Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks, Lucy.
So
Maybe
I
time
just
for
wanna-
one more, Jake?
Yeah, I want to say, I'll answer maybe one more, but also I want to just really thank everyone for questions. The more questions we get, the better. We do have a section on the website, frequently asked questions, which continues to grow. And I promise to answer every question, and it'll make it to that space. Or if you email me directly, you typically get an answer back. So thanks for some really good questions. I can't answer them all now, but there was a question around state aid. I think it was from Asha. Thanks for that. Right now, the districts are basically getting minimal student aid, which is typically on a per student head. And so Chapter 70, which is aid from the state, has been relatively flat because of that reason. So what happens is enrollment declines, and then the state, because your enrollment's not increasing, holds your enrollment harmless and gives you a few dollars per student. And so that is actually one of the factors which we think is complicating and really passing the fiscal burden on running schools to the towns and away from the state. So thanks for that question. And then just to piggyback off of that on Corey Sprague's question, we do think that because this is a one-of-a-kind project, that there is room to petition the state for incentives and or relief. So let's say, for example, the idea of regional transportation, which I know everyone feels somewhat slighted on because the state promised to fully reimburse that and hasn't historically done that. But that may be something we could write into an agreement if we do that to get a commitment from the state. And there may be other incentives to build into this. So we're not going to be shy about asking the state if we're going to do this really unique project that sets a precedent in the state, that we hope there'll be some incentives on to pull off this work and to support their work.
Great. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Lucy, and thank you everybody for sharing so publicly the questions that are on our minds. And so part of the reason that we're using the platform we are is to be able to do just this, capture and have as artifact of these conversations the questions that are coming up. And these, as Jake said, any that did not get addressed already will get put into the queue to be addressed. And there are some themes already emerging across these. And so we're going to move forward and actually move towards a collective strategic analysis. And to do so, we're going to use the Collaborate board again a couple of times in order to do a deeper dive and around 4 angles to this work. I'm going to ask you to think strategically and share, what do you see as the strengths of the preferred model? What do you see as the challenges of the preferred model? What do we see as potential opportunities? And what do we see as threats? And we're going to do this for the following purpose, the process, and product. And so the purpose of this time, and we're going to take about the next 35 to 45 minutes to engage in as much conversation as we can, is to really solicit feedback, to better understand the community sentiment and ultimately strengthen the proposal. Our process is that we're going to treat each round independently. So we're going to first focus on the strengths. And I'm going to ask you to do what you just did, which was independently share what do you see as a strength. We're going to do some voting and see what we see, what trends emerge collectively, and then hopefully have a discussion. And then we're going to move to the next question, totaling all four. The product of this is hopefully going to be an archive of both the individual and collective reactions that the board is going to review following this, and certainly factor in to future planning. And the product is also the conversation that we have as a community. And so the four questions again are these. What do you see as the strengths of the preferred model? What are the challenges of the preferred model? Sorry for the typo. What are the opportunities for students that you think the preferred model is going to enable our towns to achieve? And what could threaten the success of the preferred model? And here again is the preferred model. I know that we've listened to a lot of words and we've read a lot of pages. And so the preferred model is what Jake and Lucy named earlier. That the two districts merge to form a single K-12 regional school district among the 8 towns, maintaining all existing elementary and middle schools, but creating a new merged 912 high school to be built on the campus of the current Monument Mountain High School. This is what we mean as the preferred model. This is the preferred model that was adopted by the planning board in April of this year. And so we're going to focus our analysis and our thinking and conversation on this model and take time to share our thinking and then engage in a conversation. And so, same as we've done a couple of times in the past, take a moment to independently share from your perspective, what do you see as the strengths of the preferred model? Let's go ahead and take 2 minutes or so to collect your thoughts, drop it in the white box, just as you have previously. And let me just name, for those of you who are not able to access the Collaborate board, answer this question in any way that makes sense for you. We'll be sending out a survey following this presentation this evening. You can share your answers to those questions there, or do so directly through the website or directly with Jake, as he just invited you to. Let's go ahead and just take a couple of moments. We'll begin to populate the Collaborate board in response to this question. And as you see your colleagues share their thinking, take a moment to just scan the notes that are in front of us and do what some of you have already done, and click on the heart as I'm doing here. Oops, there you go. For 2 or 3 perspectives other than yours that that particularly resonate. Take just 30 more seconds to let folks finish their thinking. All right, and this is a moment that the Zoom meeting becomes a conversation, and so I'm going to let's see. I'm going to resort these sticky notes by most likes. This is going to become like America's Got Talent really quickly, and we're going to see who has the greatest number of votes. And sure enough, I'm going to ask a couple of folks to just share and come off mute and share what do you see as the success or the strengths of the preferred model, and just add some of your own words to the stickies that you are sharing. Keep it coming. And Patrick, can we ask you to share first, then Julie, then Sharon? Patrick, then Julie, then Sharon. Patrick, talk to us. What do you see as a particular strength?
Unfortunately, my microphone does not work well, so let me move to the next person and I'll try to log in.
Oh, we're hearing you great.
Oh, okay. Well, I just feel like I said, it provides a, it improves curriculum, it improves the facility. I think everybody has to imagine what this giant decline in enrollment looks like, and we can't just evaluate based on the experiences of today. We've got to think through, by the time this project is ready to launch, what our communities look like, and there's fewer and fewer children. When I was at Monument, we had over 300 kids from Stockbridge in K through 12, and I believe the number is 112 or 118 now, and that's going to continue to decline, and we just have to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Patrick. Julie, talk to us. What do you see as a particular strength?
I think the strength of having broader opportunities for students, including the career and technical education, which, by the way, I would hope the schedules would allow that any vocational students that wanted to do higher classes, AP, and things like that would mesh really well together. That's an aside. But I think we are a small population. What struck me in the demographics is that by 2030, with a combined district, we would be returning to the number of students that Monument had or Berkshire Hills had in 2010. So, we really do need the strength in numbers. There's some great programs at both schools. Putting everything together, I do think, is a good idea. I think it's fiscally sound, but I think it has to be very careful. I worry about school cultures. I know the high school cultures are very different, and I saw that noted by people earlier, and I know that to be true from some of my professional work. But I do think there are ways, and I wonder, how will the districts and the schools be unified? But I'll probably jot that on another sticky in another question, another Scott piece.
Indeed, that's exactly where we're going. Where we're going next. Thank you, and Shannon, Gregory, you've got a couple of pieces that really resonated with folks. Share a little bit about particular strengths that you see. Sharon, I'm coming to you. Are you able to come off mute? Maybe not. Mary, are you able to unmute Sharon? Right. We will, Sharon. We're going to come back to you. There may be some confusion around different names in the in each place, but I thank you, everybody. We're going to hold on to these. We're going to hold on to these strengths.
I think
Can you hear
Sharon can talk now.
Okay.
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Yes, I'm really excited about having an expanded curriculum, which includes VOTEC. And as Ken Rock had talked about, having an adjacent VOTEC and regular high school, I think is a big plus. There's some people that think it should be separated, but so many people have told me that they felt stigmatized and loss of friendships in their regular high school by going to North Adams or wherever they had to go to. And the fact that we can have more than one or two programs, I think many of the towns like Great Barrington have had to fund a lot of students or increasing number of students to go further away, paying for tuition and transportation. It's not good for the towns. It's not good for the students who have to travel so far. So, and finally, I think the idea of having a larger high school with many students who feel maybe on the minority of views will find more like-mindedness with a larger cohort in high school.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I saw lots of nods in the Zoom room, which seems to suggest that those views resonate. And so we're going to keep moving, and you all have become pros now at Nearpod and Collaborate boards. And we're going to do this with a couple of rounds. And so question number 2 is this. What are the challenges that you see in the preferred model? What are the key challenges that you think we should be keeping top of mind as we consider this model moving forward? Go ahead and just same thing. Take 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. Drop your thinking. Click on the heart of a couple that share, a couple that resonate, and we will we'll share out a few before moving to the next question. If you haven't already, go ahead and finish your thoughts, post, read, and heart. And let's start this conversation. By hearing some new voices. Would love to hear Lauren, Peter, and maybe Tricia. Talk to us. What do you see as some key challenges that we should be thinking about? Lauren, hi. Talk to us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
I think honestly, that's the elephant in the room, right? Getting people to buy into this idea. People have so much passion for their own school district, where their kids go. They love the culture. They love the teachers. They love lots of things about it. So I see that as a huge challenge and a hurdle to have to get over. I also have heard rumblings from many people that Great Barrington just wants Sheffield to pay for their school or other towns to pay for their school. And I think that those pieces of information are embedded in some people's head, and that is really hard for some people to overcome.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Susan, you say something similar. You want to just to add on any additional or build on Lauren's comments?
Sure, I totally agree with that. I think there's another smaller elephant in the room, which is it's not just that people love what they have, it's that there's some sense of turf anxiety. You know, people are feel that they're, I mean, I think down here, I live in New Marlborough, that people are worried that their school's going to get sort of gobbled up, or that this new school, if there is one, won't feel like their place. And I think I don't see it. I don't see that as a real problem. In fact, the opposite. I think if the schools can merge, there's going to be this tremendous sense of connection between the two communities. I really do. But I think overcoming that right now is a big problem. And I don't just think it's parents. I think it's staff and faculty at the schools, or at least some of the staff and some of the faculty.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I can't get my comments sent to the central board. I keep hitting the return, but it doesn't go up.
Oh my goodness. I'm not sure what's going on, but since you've got the mic, why don't you say what you wrote?
Okay. I said some are concerned with Monument's need to build a new high school. I think there's a way that costs can be negotiated so that the three towns help share in the cost to carry Mount Everett in the short term, let's say, 3 to 5 years. And Mount Everett helps to fund in a lesser than full way the Monument Mountain High School. There will be no high school including Mount Everett, which will be more modern, fully functional, and with as large a VOTEC facility in South County. So there's the problem, and here's a suggestion for, mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon and Susan, did you were you able to finish your thought?
Sure. Yeah.
Great. Last comment, Peter. Could you just add voice to what you're naming about shared identity, and I think this builds on some of the earlier comments.
Indeed, it does. I think it really follows Lauren and Susan's comment, because right now we're 8 towns that are within 2 districts, and we need to move towards an 8-town region that has an identity around excellent education and connectivity between and among the towns, and a commitment to bring the resources together to educate at the highest level. And that will take work to build those ties, that culture commitment and the continued culture of excellence, because it exists in both districts today, and it's just combining those two to form a regional identity. And I think that regional identity can also have spillover effects in other things that we can do together as 8 towns. And as I think Peter Dillon reflected in an earlier comment, even those 8 towns together is still a manageable, smaller scale where relationships matter and kids can really carve their path as they identify themselves.
Yeah, thank you. And Patrick, I see your hand, and I also see your comment to Tricia's comments. What's on your mind? And we'll make this the last comment before we take the lab at our next question.
I just think that when you look at the map, the cost of the new high school over the 8 towns, if that's the way we go, and certainly I'm not suggesting that the South Berkshire towns do not potentially see a credit for the rest of the burden they have with the payments on Mount Everett. But nevertheless, in Stockbridge, which is the budget I know, our share of the new high school would be probably 7 or 8% of our total current dollars commitment to education. And we have to realize that these are financings that occur over 30 or 40 years. And while the numbers sound giant, when you look at the annual costs, it's actually a relatively small percentage of the overall education costs for our towns. And we get so many benefits from it that I hope people don't get too hung up on what the tax burden is of the infrastructure, because it's a relatively low number.
Thank you, Patrick. I think it's important to call out. And so with that, let's come back to our third question, and center students in your answers to this question. Put yourself in the position of a 4th grader or an 8th grader or a 10th grader or a senior, and imagine, what do you see as the opportunities for students of this preferred model? That what's this going to do for kids? Take a moment to collect your thoughts, share your thinking. We'll do the same thing. Take another moment or so. And I'd love to jump in and just hear from you, Peter, first. across the board, we see many of us naming increased opportunities in a broader array of experiences. And you, Peter, Dylan, named increased opportunities for more rigor and more engagement across academic and social areas. Can you just say a little bit more about what you're thinking about specifically and what this might look like in a new school model?
Ben, thanks for calling on me. I'm trying mostly to listen tonight, so I'll be really quick. I think we just hit a critical mass in the current context. There are 4 students in an AP this or in an independent study or something else, and if there were 8 or 10 or 12 students working towards some common purpose, I think it could be both more rigorous and more engaging. But mostly, I just want to listen tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. And I would love to just open the floor, and instead of being called on, feel free to raise your hand or come right off mute and share your thinking. What do you see as some unique or key opportunities for students in a preferred model that they may not have fully today?
Oh, I'll just jump in.
I knew I could count on you, Susan.
To be an interrupter? You're right. I actually think that the one concern that no one said out loud, but I know is in the comments and in people's minds, is this idea of these 2 really separate cultures, or this loss of identity of one or both schools, or that the kids won't be able to blend, or the teachers won't be able to blend. And it's not only that I don't worry, I don't think that will happen if they actually merge, but I think it will be the greatest strength of this. I mean, I think there will be financial savings for taxpayers ultimately, but the more exciting thing to me personally is that kids will get to be around a more varied group of grown-ups and other kids, and they won't be so siloed. I think it's crazy. As someone who raised 3 kids who went through both school systems, and so I'm really half my body in each school, it's nutty how separate they are. And all I can think about is how much better it would be for children in South County and teenagers to be part of this more varied group. So the thing that people are worried about, I think, would quickly become its greatest strength.
I agree.
I see a lot of nods and plus ones. Any other comments or thoughts or reactions to what's been shared?
I'll say something. This is Lauren Hyde. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Something that I struggle with as a parent often in Berkshire County, in Southern Berkshire in particular, is, and I've said this to many people over and over again, like the struggle between, sheltering your child from the world and allowing your child to flourish in the world. So I oftentimes struggle with what the right thing is and where that falls for my children. And one day I think I make the right decision, and the next minute I think I made the wrong one. So those are constantly weighing on my mind as a parent, but I really feel that with more students, I just think it can only enhance my children's experience. I don't think that more students in a student body would be negative for my children whatsoever. I think it would only help them become better people. They'd be exposed to more things. They would make a friend who knows something they don't know about because it's just not part of anything that they've ever had experience with before. So those are things that are always on my mind as a parent.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can
Thank
I
you,
actually
Laura.
just respond to one
Susan,
thing
yeah, go ahead.
really super quickly? I really appreciated what you said, even though I can't see you and I don't know you, Lauren. But the other thing is, in here in South County, we're not talking about a huge super school. Even if these two schools combine, it will be, compared to most schools in this country, a small, intimate school where people will know each other well. It's not going to ever be a place where kids will get lost, because it's just not that. We don't have that many people. Even in our wildest dreams, we won't. So,
Indeed. Sharon, you raised your hand, and I'm going to move us to the next slide. But before we do, share your thought. Oh, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yes.
Okay. We've come into a completely different world with, globalization, the internet, and so forth. And so, kind of staying too much in a silo is troublesome to me. I like the fact that the elementary schools, will stay. So we have the youngest children in a familiar and small environment. But high school, I think, is really preparatory to going into the world. And I think this is a major strength, even though thought of as perhaps a weakness for some. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. And I see you, Brian and Bonnie. We've got time to want to hear your voices. So Brian first, then Bonnie.
Hi, this is actually Mariana Cicerci. I'm Brian's wife.
Hello, Brian's wife. Mariana.
Hello, Mariana. I am a resident of Great Barrington, but both my children choiced into Southern Berkshire School District. And I actually disagree about the number not affecting the quality of education that the children will get. A larger student body is a factor. And if you look at Mount Everett's numbers combining with Monument, that is more than double the school now. So you're talking about a huge increase. Having gone to all small schools my entire life, including college, I can attest for the gift that it is to be in a place where people know you. And I do not believe that that will be the case if we merge the two districts. I think students will have an easier chance in getting lost. I think that the relationships between teachers and students will be much more straight, just because there'll be more of them. I mean, it's just math, really. So I think, just like Great Barrington doesn't like big box stores, and we don't allow them in this town, I don't think that we should do a big box school. And that's my piece. Thank you for hearing me.
Yes, and that's why we have these conversations. Your voice is important, and thank you for that. Bonnie, last word.
Thank you. I've been quiet most of the time because of wanting to hear the comments that have been made. And they have been, as a school committee member and being on the regional planning board, your comments have really impacted my thinking to such a great extent. But here's where my concern is. We have maybe 40s, what was the number? 40 something people, 41 at this point. How do we get out to the rest of our community? And almost half of the 41 is made up of our planning board, our school committee, and our researchers. And to hear so many of the comments that were made tonight, I am still very much afraid that when it comes to the time of voting, people are not going to be voting on what they should be voting on. And we've got to do a much better job somehow of getting more and more people aware of the issues that have been raised today. And I'd hate for us, based on the comment, that Lucy has made, that we wind up that one town says no or 2 towns say no. And what are we doing? We're leaving those people out there not knowing where to go, or thinking that if there's a special vocational program at the new school, they're going to have to pay 20,000 plus to have their child go there. So my concerns are on 2 sides. 1, the unanswered, and 2, how do we get out some of these thoughts that, I mean, the people who participated tonight have really raised some incredible issues. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Bonnie. And what a perfect segue to this question, which is what could threaten the success of the preferred model? And Sarah, I see your hand. Let me give folks 30 to 45 seconds to drop your thinking here, and let's see collectively what could threaten the success of this model. And Sarah, as folks populate this, I'd love to ask you to come off mute and share what's on your mind.
Certainly. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thanks. So I left a couple of comments about, for example, Asian languages and the incredible asset we have here of open space. I mean, just think of places where the high schools are just a building stacked one floor above another. But the thing that comes to mind right now, just based on more recent comments, including Bonnie's, is that I think a missing piece here is involving youth. The current generation, and I'm sure their younger siblings to follow them, they will say, who asked us, in a much more serious way than the generations that everyone here, is a member of variously. They'll want to know why they weren't consulted if they're not consulted. And as far as, getting community voice to this in terms of what Bonnie was saying, they'll get it out there if we bring them to the table. And we already have a wonderful track record in this community with youth leadership. I'm thinking of Railroads for Youth Project, but there's, of course, many other examples that I'm sure are coming to other people's minds. But the thing that I'd like to say the most is we need to ask the children what they want.
Sarah, thank you. And I so appreciate and saw lots of nods in response to your comment about centering the ultimate user of our schools, our students, centering their voice and their experience in this conversation. I think is incredibly important. Thank you for all of you who've been populating this final question, which is potentially maybe the most important question as we continue in the planning process for this project. How do we mitigate or anticipate some of the biggest threats that could get in the way of the success? And your voice really matters in this. So take another 30 seconds or so. If you haven't already, drop your thoughts in this board. Click on the heart with 1 or 2 of the comments that your colleagues and neighbors have named. We'll have time for probably just 1 or 2 voiceovers prior to closing for this evening, respecting your time, so that we'll be sure to let us go back to our lives and our work at 7:30. Go ahead and take a moment. All right, as we begin to come to a close, I'd love to just make room for a couple of comments. Aisha, we've got a string of a conversation taking place on your thread. Could you just voice over this question about potential bias in this group? Those of us who may have shown up here may lean one way or the other, and I think you raise a really great question. Say more about why this stands out for you and what you think we should do about it.
Who did you ask?
Aisha Van Ruden.
Hi, yeah, I don't know why there are not more folks here, but I teach at Mount Everett. I'm in the school with the kids, with the other teachers. And the general consensus is more one of this is something that is getting done to us. It's not really something that at least the people I've spoken to really want. And it really has to do with the cultures of the majority of the feelings come from the differences between the cultures of the two school districts. Some kids know, lots of kids know kids from the other districts and maybe are friends with them, but overwhelmingly the cultures of the districts are really very different. And I don't think that we can just so quickly, I think, yes, maybe a bigger school will mean, nicer facilities, et cetera. Maybe that will attract a lot of people, but I think that a lot of work needs to be done to ensure for the students of who would have formally gone to Mount Everett, they need to be assured that their concerns and their voices are going to be heard, and it's not just going to be Monument gobbling up Mount Everett kids, because that's the feeling, that's the very, very overwhelming feeling right now in the Southern Berkshire district. It feels like it was a done deal before this whole thing even started. It feels like Monument needed a new school building, and this was the best way to get it. So I'm just being honest about that. And I'm not saying that it's not going to work out better for everybody, but that's not the feeling that I'm getting from within the school district. Mostly teachers and students and some parents. And so I don't know how to get those parents on board or community members. I don't know what the answer is there, but I do think it's a concern that, that should be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. We have time for let's just take these last two hands, Lauren, then Patrick, and then we're going to close out.
Something that's been brought up over and over again on the call tonight is the culture of both schools. I'm curious to get the point of view from Asha Van Ruden, what the culture of Mount Everett is and what the culture of Monument is. And then I would ask the same question then to someone who is from Berkshire Hills School District.
Thank you.
To comment on the culture of both.
Thank you, Lauren. I think that's an important question, and unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to have. We're not going to have time for back and forth about that. But I'm going to ask Patrick to just name what is this conversation and the post here make you think about, and we're going to make you the last voice. Oh, you're on mute. Patrick, you're on mute. There you go. Oh, you're still on mute. There you are.
Speaking of one of the towns in the three districts in Berkshire Hills, all three districts voted overwhelmingly to put $500,000 into a school engineering study that we don't get back if the school doesn't get built. And we didn't do it based on whether or not South Berkshire would join us. Stockbridge voted to double its contribution to the new high school without ever considering whether the 5 towns in Southern Berkshire were going to join us. to suggest that the folks in Stockbridge anyway are in this to try to kind of wrangle money out of the South Berkshire towns is sort of a little bit unfair to us. Though I understand that folks are worried about lots of different things. I just simply think that a new school is better for all of us, and it, at least in Stockbridge, has nothing to do with who pays how much.
Thank you, Patrick. And that, in the interest of time, we're going to have to close the conversation at this moment, and just know that pushing and pulling on each of the corners of really complex questions for communities to grapple with, that's the work that we did. And so, thank you on behalf of the board. And thank you for engaging for almost two hours now to push and pull, and that's what it's about. And so as we work towards a close, just in the next couple of minutes, I'd love to just take a pulse check. And I stopped sharing my screen so that you had full access to the Nearpod. And overall, how are you feeling about the direction of this work? You'll see a poll in the Nearpod. And I'm going to ask you to take a stand on a forced choice from A to E. I'm in support. I'm leaning towards. I'm neither in support. I'm leaning against. I'm against. And for those of you who may be working on your iPads, just know that you're going to have an opportunity to vote in a survey link that is forthcoming in just a moment. So take a moment, take a stand. You see,
Ben.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. So, that question about cultures, I think that's really the thing that comes up just repeatedly, and the request to define the cultures and to you can't move forward if that's the issue until you in fact define what the cultures are of each district and what the concerns are. Because I can say that as my concerns as a parent of someone in South County is that the school has a reputation of giving a lot of individual attention to students, especially students who would otherwise be falling through the cracks. Obviously, that's a small school, or that I see Great Barrington as having a lot of economic stratification. Where I feel like Southern Berkshire has a much more egalitarian vibe in general, that students are sort of on equal standing more so. That's my impression, whether it's legitimate or not. So these are the issues that people have that come up over and over and over again, but you're not actually defining what those issues are, so you can't address them until you hear what those specific concerns are.
Thank you, Joyce. I certainly hear you and appreciate the complexity of what you're naming, and know that this is complex work that we are bumping up against the clock now, and we I look forward to, I think, multiple opportunities over the next year to dig deep into some of the questions that you and others are naming. And so, if you haven't had a chance to cast your vote here, and just with a pulse check of how are you feeling about this work, do so now. And I'm going to just share where this group lands, and then I'm going to pass it actually back to Lucy and Jake, who are going to help close us out just in the last couple of minutes. We have hopefully you can see the quick pulse check of where this group is landing at the moment. We have a number who haven't had a chance to answer. And in the interest of time, I'm going to actually move us towards looking forward. We promised folks that you would be out close to 7:30, and we're bumping up against that. And so, Lucy, Jake, take it away and help us look towards what's next.
Sure. Thanks again, everybody. I know we can never adequately get to everything we want to cover in 2 hours, and I appreciate the rich conversation and understand that we take it all in and it all be part of, I think, discussion at the board level and certainly among our team moving forward. But we do, again, just want to remind everyone, more information on the website. We recognize that a lot of things you raised today are not necessarily addressed on the website, but there is a lot of information there that I think will help to continue to set the stage. That we are adding FAQs, and so the questions that you all generated today will be, we'll work on responses to those and get those loaded. I encourage you to go to that part of the website. We think it's well done and is written in a language that hopefully everyone could have access to. And I would really encourage you spread the word about this particular feature of the website for those who are not as closely plugged in and maybe could access this to help them better understand what the board and the process, what the board is up to and how the process is moving ahead. As someone who tends to think 6, 7, 12 hours later, I always want to make my comment well after the meeting is over. I would really encourage you to make those comments. We have a contact page on the website, and you can drop in a note to us at any point. Again, we try to respond to everything that comes through the website. So don't be afraid if you have a thought cross your mind that you can drop it in the website. Our steps ahead, just in terms of the short term, is we do ask everyone to do a quick survey, which will be on the last slide today. Again, feedback via the website, and just encourage everyone who maybe, if you thought today was valuable in terms of discussion and learning more about our work, that they attend the Thursday session. And we would encourage you all to come back on Thursday. You'll hear some of the same introductory content, but the conversation, I'm sure, will add additional insights and thoughts into the hopper. On the longer term, we do encourage you to plug into the meetings and presentations that we have. And there'll be future opportunities, as was mentioned earlier, around ed planning, ed design work, that we hope that we can get folks engaged in, and feel free, of course, to talk this up, dialogue with family and friends, whether they're in support or in opposition. We really want folks engaged in the process. We have upcoming presentations to the town, the select boards. There's a list on the screen. If you want to attend the one that is in your town or others, these are open meetings. And we'll be interacting with the select boards, hopefully to get their questions and any additional information that they may have or need or want pertaining to the board's work. My closing thought is we all come to this meeting tonight and we do our work because we care deeply about kids, our children. We care deeply about our community. We really want kids to have the highest possible experience. My last 2 children just graduated from high school. It's been a long haul for us in the public system, and it's our life's work, and we really believe strongly in it. So I just share that with you all because I really appreciate you being here today. We know this is going to be hard. We know it's generational work that you're all doing right now, but again, I thank you for your time tonight. I'll pass it to Lucy just for a closing comment, and we'll sign off for the evening.
Thanks, Jake. Thank you, Ben, for your expert help in facilitating this interactive event. Jake and I could not have done this without you, so thank you very much. Thank you to my colleagues on the 8-Town Planning Board for your commitment to this work. It's a lot of work, it's hard work, and I really appreciate all of your commitment and good faith in moving the process forward. I want to thank our 2 superintendents for the work they do for our kids each and every day. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, Beth. And most importantly tonight, I want to thank our guests for coming and participating. I said at the beginning of our meeting tonight that our 8-Town board is essentially a study group. That's what we are. We don't have any legislative or other authority other than to recommend to you, the residents of the towns, the solution we think is best once we are through our process of analysis, of design and development, and we're still in that process. And your input is critical to that process. So we thank you for it. And that's it. I would ask our planning board members to stay on the line so that we can officially close out our meetings. But again, thank you all.
Also, I'll send out the link to the survey because you can click on it right now and do it. But some people have left, or you might not have time to do that before we adjourn. So I will email this link to the survey we'd like you to complete following the meeting.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and hope to see you engaged in the near future. Be well.
Thank you, Ben.
So who do we have on here? I think we've got community outreach still on. So I'll take a motion from one of our community outreach members to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay.
Okay, all in favor? Bonnie?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Nadine? And Lucy, yes. Do we still have Ed Quality Quorum on? We have Bonnie, Susan, we don't have Deb. Oh, we do have Deb, great, we do have Deb, thank you. So I'll take a motion to adjourn Ed Quality.
Ed Quality.
Second. Deb seconds. All in favor, Bonnie?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
And Deb?
Yes.
And project management, do we still have a quorum there? No. So we can't adjourn, but since we don't have a quorum, we are adjourned.
You, Nadine, Peter, and Deb.
Oh, we do have a quorum, great. Motion to adjourn project management.
Motion to adjourn project management.
Second?
I'll second. I wasn't here at the beginning, unfortunately, though,
That's
but I will
okay.
second.
All in favor, Deb?
Yes.
Nadine? Peter?
Yes.
And Lucy, yes.
Sorry, yes.
Great. I think that's it. I hope I got it all right.
You did great, Lucy.
Thank
You did your best. You did your best. That's all we can ask.
Very much a reasonable effort.
Good night, everybody.
Right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks to Lucy and Jake for coordinating this. Very
Yeah,
important step.